Scene Daddy Interviews.
Welcome, everyone, to Scene Daddy Interviews. My name is Ian, and on Skype right now, I have the extremely talented Andy Cizek. Andy, man, how you doing today?
What's up, man? I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, man. So first question, did I get your last name kind of right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's definitely not the easiest to sound out. So Cizek
Cizek.
is the way you say it.
Okay.
I've gotten all sorts of pronunciations, so whatever you want to call me is fine.
We'll stick with Andy for right now, but then let's also just go down the line here. So when I say Makari, is that correct?
Yeah, you got it. You nailed it.
All right. And then now, I'm assuming it's Wander, but not Wunder.
Yeah, Wander. Some people think it's Wonder, but the V is an upside down A.
Right.
Since getting threatened with a lawsuit several years back, yeah.
Right. That is what I was going to get into. Now, let me ask right off then, because you did that change, is it now actually easier for people to get in touch with you, like on Spotify, and to find you on Facebook and whatnot? Is it actually easier now?
Probably not. Just because it introduces like a variable of confusion. I think maybe to the new fans, it's no big deal, but to the ones that stuck with us from the beginning, they still have a hard time even today with the adjustment. But whatever, as long as people find us, that's all I really care about.
Right. Absolutely. And that totally makes sense. And then obviously, maybe not even obviously, but you do have the brand new album, Nothing Stays, coming out with Wander. That's coming out on May 25th, correct?
Actually, it drops on the 17th. It comes out I think that's Friday.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But the CD release show is the 25th. So it's coming out a week earlier just because that's when I could fly home and when it made sense to do the show. So yeah, you'll get it a little earlier than expected.
Very cool. All right, that is pretty awesome. And that's on We Are Triumphant, right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, very cool. So tell me a little bit about the album release show for Nothing Stays, because if I'm right, you guys don't tour that often, right?
No, we've barely toured, and when we did it, I had to hire a few fill-ins, so it's super rare for us to play shows nowadays in general.
Were you just able to get everyone together?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely can't take credit alone. It was all of the guys really were like, we have to do this. We have to do this release right.
Mm-hmm.
Let's play a hometown show. We all grew up, most of us, in a town called Frederick, Maryland.
Sure.
So that's where the show's happening, at this new venue called New Spire Arts. And our guitar player, Jack, has done all the heavy lifting with setting it up and, logistics. And then we've just, from there, we just really want to get the band back together and have a little fun with all of our old friends. And, Wander's always going to be my baby.
Right.
And any chance I get to play live again with that band, I'm taking it. So it should be a really, really good time. And we're all just super, super excited to, get everyone back together and all that.
For sure. So what is the reason for not touring so much? Is it because, or not even getting to play as much, is it because you guys just live far away from each other and you don't really have time with, other life commitments?
Well, yeah, it's more of the second one than anything else. I moved to Florida about a year ago.
Okay.
And that was off the heels of joining Makari and being like, okay, this is my my full-time focus, and we actually do tours.
Yes.
Wander has never been a super heavily touring band just because a lot of the members have, serious government jobs or just big lifetime commitments, marriages and
Sure.
I mean, and then of course it's just the number one thing is that it's not for everyone. You can be a creative and love to write and record, but maybe not necessarily like the grind of touring.
Exactly.
And that's totally understandable. That's just not what everyone wants to do with their life.
Right. Yeah.
Personally, I'm all about that. So,
Right.
That's why I'm here. But I respect the boys' commitments and their other endeavors. And, if the demand was really there, I could see it happening again. Maybe either the whole band would want to go out and do something, or perhaps pop on a couple more fill-ins. But basically, it's we're playing it by ear,
Right.
and that's what I like about the band, is that we can just do that and sort of coast. And if everyone's feeling up to doing something, then we'll do it.
Yeah, and that makes complete sense. So for this actual, album release show, are you going to be able to do Nothing Stays front to back, or are you going to mix in from the discography as well?
Oh yeah, it's definitely gonna be heavily Nothing Stays,
Mhm.
but we're still gonna play a good amount of shit from all our previous albums.
Right.
That's just what one I really want to do, because I miss that stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what made us who we are. But also I know all the fans are gonna want to hear their old favorites, and this is a big nostalgia thing, I think.
True.
A lot of the appeal. Of course, we have a new album coming out and we're playing a lot of tracks off of it. But, we all miss the old stuff, and that'll be fun to revisit and just, bring back those familiar vibes.
Exactly. So that's actually something I wasn't sure about when you mentioned that you had moved down to Florida. I
Mhm.
wasn't sure if you had been either working from Maryland to work with Makari in Florida, or if you've been doing, vice versa. So you're down in Florida with Makari. How do you guys put the whole entire album together?
For Wander?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, that's a good question. When we started doing the pre-pro for the album, I
Mhm.
still lived in Maryland, and so I mean, the guys knocked out a lot of that on their own. We did some of it with me. Traditionally, that's what it's always been. Is like it would be me and my guitar player Jack just sitting in my basement, working out the demos and stuff like that. So that's primarily how we got it done, just writing wise. And then from there, it was like, okay, wow, all of us are busy and have lots of obligations. And I was doing a lot of touring with Makari at that point. So
Mhm.
we sort of we scheduled the recording process a little bit disconnected. Like, first strings were done. So our two guitar players and our bass player went up to, we recorded with Jamie King
Ah,
in Winston-Salem.
sure.
So they went up first and tracked all their stuff. And then, you know what? Actually, it might have been drums first. I'm sort of drawing a blank, but the
Sure,
point
sure.
is, our drummer went out separately, recorded his parts. Our guitar players went out separately, recorded their parts, and then I was last. I went out by myself and tracked all the vocals with Jamie. Jamie King's amazing, by the way. Really
Yeah, yeah.
awesome to work with. Great producer and engineer, and just really easy to get along with. And he's just a workhorse. So
Yeah.
yeah. So we did it like that, and then from there we would get mixes back and discuss them in a group chat, and revise them until we were happy with them.
Wow. Wow. So it is very interesting that bands, because I hear this a lot, that bands are able to do that living so far away from each other. And also was it coincidence then also that Jamie is about halfway in between Maryland and Florida, that it just
Yeah,
worked out that
yeah.
way?
No, it just happened that way. And
Okay.
I mean, I think I was still in Maryland at the time primarily, but the problem was that I was going out on tours with
Right.
Makari before I even moved out to Florida. So that was getting in the way of all of us being there at the same time.
I see.
And also, it was just different. Like, we did all the albums prior just at my house, like self-produced them. So this was a big change of pace, and we just had to roll with the punches.
Right. Yeah, you have to make sure that you're able to work all that stuff out to get done. So completely understood there. So did you yourself, when you're writing lyrics, when you're writing melodies, how do you normally do it? And does it change per band? So when you're working with Makari, is it different than working with Wander? And then going off of what you just said as well, when you were working before, in your basement, was that writing completely different than what you had to do for Nothing Stays?
Sure. So with Wander, I've always had carte blanche with the lyrics and melodies. That's I don't know if it's just it felt natural,
Mhm.
or we all just were really comfortable in the roles that we were put in.
Sure.
For the most part, Jack does all of his own guitar parts, and Danny writes his own parts, and Brett works the drums out on his own. And then we actually got our old bass player Zach back for this most recent album. But our previous release, I just recorded the bass myself.
Gotcha.
But anyway, getting off topic, Wander, I do all the lyrics on my own.
Mhm.
It feels like a more personal project, and just that's what's always worked for us,
Sure.
and worked for me, and it's my personal outlet, and I'm very grateful to be able to do that. With Makari, though, before I joined the band, our drummer Kevin actually wrote pretty much all the lyrics.
Right.
And so when I joined, it was like, okay, well, I'm actually, I'm a writer, so let's collaborate. And so our last album, Hyperreal, was
Mhm.
basically 50-50 in terms of writing. We would be bouncing ideas off of each other, or he would send me some free verse poetry because Kevin's like really gifted with vivid imagery, and he plays to those strengths as well as, I'm good at other stuff, the more personal touch.
For sure.
So yeah, we would do things like that, just sort of delegating the duties as we saw fit, and that created like a really cool result for that band. So I'm happy to be able to have different writing approaches for different bands, and I think it just, it fits better that way.
Right. And now, does that work into, because like we mentioned, there's a lot of stuff to talk about with what you're doing. I'm surprised you have time even to talk to me today. So
Of course, dude.
I very
It's
much
my
appreciate
pleasure.
it. Yeah. But also add in your solo work because you also had Existential come out, very
Yeah.
recently. So that's your own song as well. So do you
Mhm.
feel that that's kind of more on the level of Wander compared to what you're able to do or what you're able to actually talk about?
Um, yeah, in a way, just because it's 100%, I'm writing the stuff. So it does come out extremely personal. But I just like having the freedom to do whatever I want
Right.
with the solo stuff. Like Existential was kind of an anomaly. It just I felt inspired to write sort of a grungy, rock type song.
Sure.
But previously, I put a single out called Select Your Inhibitor, which is a lot more metal and, you know, driven, like heavy music kind of
Right.
stuff. And I think moving forward, I'm going to keep just writing whatever I feel like writing.
Mhm.
So maybe it will be more heavy stuff, or maybe it will be, more rock and roll. But yeah, it's just, I like having the ability to write whatever I feel like, and put my name on it. And it's just like, this is what I'm interested in doing. And if you like it, that's cool.
Yeah.
I've never been a stellar guitar player or bass player
Okay.
or anything like that. But since I'm well versed in audio production, it's kind of what I've been doing for almost 10 years now, I guess.
Right.
I can make it work. I can play things in pieces and chop it up. So I write it however I want, and then I figure out how am I going to record it
Ah,
later on.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. That's extremely interesting because one of the things that I always focus on as well, especially, with lyrics and your melodies and what you're doing with all of these different bands, how do you kind of not compartmentalize, but how do you actually, is there some type of a schedule? Is there something that you follow that you know that this is what you're writing for each band or each solo project that you're doing? Like, how do you actually, I don't know, how do you choose which one you're actually writing for?
Huh. Well, usually it just comes down to the instrumental.
Okay.
Like, I don't like to write lyrics without hearing what it's going to be on.
Okay.
So the music always comes first. So if I'm hit with a new Makari demo, say the boys have been working on something, then I just write basically whatever that track inspires me to write.
Okay.
And that's how it comes out. Same for Wander, different sounds just sort of put me in a different state of mind. Of course, I always have stuff on my notepad where it's like, oh, this is a good line. I'll save it for something. I'll save it for
Ah,
later.
okay.
But generally, I go off the vibes of the music and I take it from there. So even if I have like a riff idea of my own that I want to use for solo shit, that usually comes first, and then the melody ideas and the patterns and the lyrics that comes after. Because I don't really like to just take deaf poetry and meld it to a song. I find it doesn't come out as natural when I do that.
I see.
So I just like to go with the flow of how the music makes me feel.
Wow. Once again, very, very interesting. So now let's talk a little bit. There's something that I definitely wanted to ask about Nothing Stays because I got a chance to listen through it multiple times. I very much enjoyed going through it. I think it's a great album. I think it's
Thank you
going to
so
do
much.
absolutely, man. I think it's going to do very well. And what I notice is, being a fan of Wander from a while back, you look at, past releases that you've done. Wander obviously was a little bit more on the pop punkish side. Precipice kind of had a little bit of that, but I kind of felt like you went a little bit more alternative, post-hardcore. And then Nothing Stays seems like you continued on from Precipice and really went through that kind of emo, post-hardcore alternative. Everything blends very, very well. But I just had a question. Was that something that you guys decided on, or was that kind of a natural thing?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there was a definitive moment where it was like, let's stop writing like this and do something else. Our guitar player Jack is the one, he gets all the songs going. He creates the skeleton and composes, the structure of the song for the most part.
Okay.
It gets tweaks along the way, but it really depends on how he's feeling, and I think just his personal growth has sort of evolved his writing style into what it is now. I think it has a lot to do with what we used to listen to and what sort of shit was happening in our lives back when we started the project, and then life changes and the music scene changes and our tastes change. And Jack just ends up writing the way he writes based on how he's sort of developing as a person,
right?
I think. And I love it. I've always been a huge fan of Jack's writing. We've been in bands together since we were kids. So seeing his growth in Wander, it always gets me excited when it's time for a new album, and he just comes at you with these fresh sounds. I'm like, whoa, that's really cool. And then also adding our second guitar player, Danny, to the band, which was, he had been in the band since Precipice, but the album was already recorded when he joined. So this was Nothing Stays is the first album that he got to write on and put his own creative input into. And I think that also really helped shape the sound into what it is now. He brought a lot of those post-hardcore emo vibes with him as well. And that's just how it came to be, I guess.
Okay. All right. Well, then another thing that I noticed a lot, from being a fan of yours for solo work and for Makari and for Wander, one of the things I noticed, especially for Makari and Wander, you're able, not only do you have an amazing vocal range, for your singing and whatnot, and we'll get more into that, but you're also you're very good at screaming, doing those unclean vocals. There's only a few points in Nothing Stays where that comes out. Is there a reason for that? Do you have to feel a certain type of emotion to, scream something? Or is that something where you kind of keep that more for the solo material?
Yeah, I think you're onto something with that first part.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I write off of how the music makes me feel.
Yeah.
And if I think that a scream is appropriate, I'm like, yeah, let's do it. I've never been one to just be like, I want to put screaming all over this record, or I want to put clean vocals all over it. It's just what I feel is appropriate for the vibes of the song. So, more aggressive or intense parts, I'm like, yeah, I think this would go great here.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the unclean vocals happen. I love screaming,
right?
And I love heavy music at heart. That's like still who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I've always just been a huge fan of metal, and I grew up on the stuff. So anytime I get the chance to, I'm all about it.
Right.
But I'm never gonna force it. So sometimes I hear people asking, why don't you scream on Wander and why don't you scream on Makari more? And that's just because I don't think it fits.
Right.
So the solo music is also an opportunity for me to let that out more.
Right.
And when I do write my heavier tracks, it's like, all right, sweet, perfect outlet for me to do all the heavy vocals and showcase that side of me.
Right.
And I'm lucky enough to be working with some really talented people on a couple other projects that are more in the vein of heavy music right now.
Okay.
Nothing announced per se, but that's definitely coming up later in this year. I think some announcements will be made, but you will hear some music with me like just going all out, doing the heavy stuff, and that's coming. I don't want to deprive the world or myself of that.
Exactly.
Like I said, it's part of who I am and I love it. But I just don't want to force it on anything that it doesn't need to be on.
Right. You're absolutely right. I think it would be a force, especially for Makari. At least with Hyperreal.
Yeah,
It didn't,
yeah,
you know what I mean? For sure, it didn't really seem
yeah.
like it needed to be there. The points that you actually chose for Nothing Stays, I think they worked out very, very well with when you chose to do that. But yeah, you actually answered a question because I came into this thinking, well, I'm sure Andy's going to have a side project at some point where there's going to be a lot more screams for sure. So you definitely
Yeah.
answered that. So that
I've
sounds
got some
perfect.
shit in the pipeline that I'm really excited about, and it's coming. So if people can just hold out a little bit longer, you'll get some original music that's aggressive and heavy, and I just want everyone to know that I'm all about that, and I
Right.
love it. I want to do it right. You know what I mean?
For sure. For sure. So let me ask you this a little debate that I've seen people get into on social medias. And especially, I talk to a lot of vocalists on the shows, obviously. And there's a back and forth about, calling it singing or clean vocals or screaming and
Yeah,
unclean
yeah.
vocals. Do you have any opinion on that? Obviously,
I
you're a
actually
fantastic
do.
vocal. All right, go ahead. I want to hear this.
That's like a cool question. I've always wanted to talk about. So I have no problem with calling it clean vocals and unclean vocals.
Mhm.
Uh, People get pissed off for some reason about the
Right.
semantics of that. But in my opinion, it's like, okay, you plug in an electric guitar without distortion, and what do you call that? You call it clean guitar.
Right.
So then you add the distortion, and it's distorted guitar, I guess,
Sure.
or unclean guitar. So I just think the same sort of aspect can be applied to vocals. It's like,
I
are
see.
you adding distortion to your voice?
Right.
Okay, clean and unclean. That whatever you want to call it, singing and screaming. I think the terminology of saying clean vocals and unclean is just, it's like a useful tool. It helps you refer to it, and people get what you're talking about. I don't really care. I
Okay.
don't feel passionately about like, what the fuck, like unclean and clean. That's so dumb.
Right.
I think it's good. I think it helps. I mean, we're in a world now where there's so many different types of vocals,
Exactly.
and why not update the terminology to fit that? So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm all for it.
No, I really like that response. You're very much on the vein that I'm talking about as well. It's one of those things where I think it gives people an idea of, first of all, what's happening. And then also, it's another descriptive term because you can go into, I've seen you do vocal lessons on YouTube before. Like, you can go into the types of different, unclean vocals or screaming, whatever you want to call it. You can go in and then be even more descriptive about what you're doing there as well.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's just another tool. Knowledge
Yeah.
is power, and whatever.
Very true. Well, let's go into that a little bit more because obviously, I'm sure you already know by now that I'm a huge fan of your vocals, pretty much everything that you do.
Thanks,
So, can
man.
yeah, absolutely. Can you go through a little bit of your background with singing because you have a crazy, crazy great range with your singing. And then, like we talked about, your screaming as well. You're able to hold some notes that I am incredibly impressed with. So, when did all of this start for you?
Thanks for the compliment, dude. That's really nice of you.
No problem.
I started singing when I was like 15, I think, and I had no idea what I was doing. Like this, definitely the skill set that I have now, I wasn't just born with.
Okay.
It took a lot of work. So I started out just winging it, and at shows I was basically yelling just to hear myself, and I had no training or lessons.
Wow.
And after a while of doing that, I realized, one, I was limiting myself, and two, I was fucking up my voice.
Ah,
Being in like basically like going through puberty and learning how to sing was like sort of an interesting combination at the time.
sure.
So I had like sort of a wake up call. I was having like vocal problems just from like screaming and singing and having, no direction.
Ah,
And so I stopped and I was like, I should actually learn how to do this. There's no sense in letting pride keep you from learning.
right.
And I think a lot of times, like vocalists especially, can be stubborn about, oh, I've never taken a lesson and that's cool, and this and that. But to me, I think you just have to open yourself up to. There's such a world of knowledge
Right.
with vocals and it's been studied for hundreds of years, and it's a science.
Mhm.
And so once I started to take it seriously. I started taking just voice lessons here and there, wherever I could find, my community college and stuff like that, and learning how to breathe properly, and placement and projection and using your diaphragm. And like, there's just so much. But from the ages, I guess, like 17 to now, I've just been learning, and that knowledge has been compounding on each other. I also like to just observe my favorite vocalists, and when I hear something that I don't know how to do, I'm like, how can I figure that out? I've got to learn that. And so just being competitive with other vocalists
Yeah.
in the scene and pushing myself, and then lessons and research and just tons and tons of scouring the internet for videos and articles, and locking myself in a room making silly noises until until it clicks, until I get it right. Like,
Right.
oh, and it didn't happen overnight. It took years and years. And I was lucky enough to have a couple vocalist friends where we would, like, alongside of each other, learn how to do that stuff, and we just sort of push each other to get better and better. And you're never done learning. So
True.
I think even next year I'll probably be a more well-rounded vocalist. But yeah, it's not something that I was just straight up born with. Of course, there was like a factor of natural talent.
Yeah.
But a lot of it was hard work and just being passionate and ambitious, and like, I just really wanted to always get to the next level. And I think that can be an inspiring thing, instead of just like, oh, I was fucking born with it, man.
Right.
Just saying like, no, it was just like hard work and learning, and you can do it too.
Yeah.
I'm super happy with how far I've come, and hopefully I'll continue along that path.
Absolutely, man. No, very, very well put there. And yeah, I think one of the big things to focus on, letting people know that they really can learn if they put the time in, is very important for people. And then also that institute of passion, making sure that you're passionate about what you're doing. And that's something that I always hear in what you're doing, especially with Nothing Stays. There are some amazing tracks on there where you can feel that personal touch that you put on it and that passion that you put into your music. So I very much appreciate that, for sure.
Thank you so much, dude. I appreciate that as well.
Absolutely, man. Now, let me focus. This is going to be a little cliche, but obviously you mentioned, other scene vocalists that you look up to or that you try, to learn one of their techniques. Just tell me, is there one person in particular that you went out of your way to be like, hey, that's a technique that I never really thought of or didn't think that I was able to do before? Like, hey, I got to learn how to do that.
Oh, totally. I think through the years, like, that person has changed. There's been a lot, like, definitely not one specific.
Oh, for sure.
But when I was younger, it probably started out with like Gerard Way from My Chemical Romance, and Jared Leto from
Oh, yeah.
30 Seconds to Mars. I was like always blown away by his vocal range.
Right.
And then as I got older, I got really, really into Dance Gavin Dance.
Sure. Yeah.
So like Johnny Craig's vocals, and Kurt Travis especially.
Yes.
It's no secret that he was a huge influence on my voice, and just hearing the way that he was able to run his range up all over the place, and knowing that he's not like a countertenor, basically, like Tillian. He doesn't just naturally have a super high voice,
Right.
But he's got the ability to project those big high notes. A big record for me that sort of shaped the way I sing was Happiness by DGD.
Oh, yeah.
And also a lot like Birds, when he was in that band.
Sure.
He really pushed himself, and I was just like, holy shit, I got to learn how to do that. And then, there's the screaming side of it too. I used to be really into The Devil Wears Prada.
Oh, yeah.
So that's how I think that's how I started to learn how to do like the brutal, the false chord, the growls and stuff. Old Attila, actually.
Oh, yeah.
I think like the early stuff, I was like, holy shit, this guy just can scream for days.
Right.
Say what you will about Attila and Franz,
Oh,
but
for sure.
his vocal ability was out of this world.
Yep.
And the band Volumes.
Oh, yeah.
Sure. Actually, back when they had the older vocalist Michael Barr,
Yeah.
his screams were like a huge influence on me and how I did the more, the vocal fry stuff. Every Time I Die, Keith Buckley is
Oh,
also
yeah.
like a giant influence. So I think, yeah, that, sort of gives you a little bit of a background.
Oh, for sure.
There's tons more I could probably name off that have influenced my sound. But those are just some of the big ones through the years.
Absolutely. And you do a lot of cover songs as well. So that's got to be able to help to know already you've studied these people, and then you're also putting the covers out too. So that's
Right.
also
Yeah.
that
And
also
the
has to
covers
help.
were just they were a way to, one, get my name out there, and two, sort of like prove to myself like I can
Right.
pull this off, and it becomes a staple in my ability when it's like, I have something to show for it. That's in my skill set. I feel like I've, somewhat mastered that sound, or whatever you want to call it.
Right. Yeah.
It's like a way to physically see the progress.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
And I love that.
No, absolutely. Actually, what you brought up back a little bit was a very good segue. So with Makari, you're actually going to be touring with Kurt Travis as well. Can you tell everyone a little bit about that tour and what it means to you?
Yeah. So this is actually our third tour with Kurt.
Right.
And he's, become like one of our closest band pals. And
Oh, good.
we were so lucky to be able to go out with him in the first place, because originally how it started was like we had some sort of tour booked, I think, with another band that didn't work out. And so we were scrambling a little bit, like, what are we going to do?
Sure.
We still want to go out and tour. And I just, on a whim, like, messaged Kurt and was like, hey, dude, we've got these dates booked, and, what would you think about coming out with Makari? And he was just like, let's do it. And I was like, seriously? So that was, I guess, a year or so ago. And that tour was amazing for us. And so, it did so well that we did another one. We had one with Brent Walsh from I the Mighty, and that was super
Sure.
cool. And so now we've built up this history. We know that we do well together. I mean, the first tour was surreal for me.
Mhm.
It was like I was meeting my hero,
Right.
and he let me perform on stage with him and do the Eternity Forever stuff.
Oh,
like,
very cool.
Like a song with him, and that was a dream come true. And amazing experience. Now that we've all gotten to know each other, it's more, it's like, oh yeah, our friend going out. But
Right.
went out back when I was all starry eyed. It was amazing for me, and I'll
For
never
sure.
forget that. And I'm just really grateful that I've been able to at least get this far, where not only have I met some of my heroes, but I've been able to work with them, and it's been really great. You know how they say don't meet your heroes and stuff,
Sure.
but Kurt Travis is a wonderful person and just an amazing performer, and I don't have enough nice things to say about the guy. So we're really excited for this next one. Also going out with Andreas,
Yeah.
who's a good friend of mine as well, and I love what he's doing right now with his newest album. So make sure you go check out Andreas, Heroes, Villains, and all that jazz. That's the name of his new album. And then Kurt's new album, his CD release tour, which is what we're doing.
Yeah.
There's a Place I Want to Take You. I'm sure that's going to be amazing. So yeah, I just want to make sure I shout out the people that are helping build me up, because I don't know where I would be without that kind of support.
No, of course, man. No, that's great. So yeah, everyone for sure. We'll hit this in plugs at the end again, but hopefully everyone can make it out. I know you guys are going around everywhere, so hopefully people can make it out for that tour as well. So I also wanted to hit on something with your solo work. You talk about working with really talented people, and another person that you've worked a lot with is Nick Nocturnal.
Yeah.
I've been a fan of his for a while as well. And something really interesting I thought you guys did together very recently was when you did the Bring Me cover of Medicine.
Right.
But
right.
you made it metal. I thought that was really interesting. Can you tell me how that idea came about, and then what it was like kind of dissecting that song, which is obviously not metal. It's
Yeah,
an EDM pop
of
mix
course,
and everything. Yeah.
of course.
How'd you guys do that together?
So most of the credit goes to Nick,
Okay.
for this idea. He is like a genius, kind of, and he just knows when it's like we need to do this. This is going to be sick. So he came up with the idea after hearing it. He was like, what if we made it, this new Bring Me the Horizon song in the old style of Bring Me the Horizon?
Right.
He was basically just like, I know you can do this. I know you can pull it off because we've worked together and I've seen your ability. And I was just like, usually is what I do is I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm always skeptical.
Sure.
But he was like, trust me, man, this is going to be sick. And so I was like, all right, I'll see what I can do. And I pushed myself, to make that sort of pitched scream, Ollie Sykes type of the old sound.
Yeah.
I'm just really happy that people liked it, and it seemed to be pretty well received, and it was fun to make, but totally Nick's idea. He's just kind of like a mastermind for things like that. If you check his channel out, he's got tons and tons of content. He's just an idea machine. So knowing someone that talented and being lucky enough that he wants to work with me on shit like that is super helpful. Just for getting my name out and being able to do cool stuff. Me and Nick are working on stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And you might hear some brand new shit from us soon.
Very
cool.
You
will. You will. And it's going to be awesome. And he's just one of the super talented guys that I get to work with.
Right.
So yeah, great musician and super lucky to make music with him.
For sure. And I'll tease a little bit. I'm hoping that we might be working on something coming up soon as well. So I'm completely with you on that
awesome.
for sure. Yeah.
Great.
But so let's go a little bit back then. How did you guys meet in the first place?
It was like I knew of his videos and he knew of my videos several years ago. And I want to say I added him on Facebook or he added me on Facebook, but I think I messaged him and I was like, dude, I love what you're doing. I loved your most recent video of like it was basically like how to learn a cover song in a day and do it.
Yep.
And I just thought that was really impressive. I was totally blown away by like his efficiency. And he was like, dude, I love what you're doing. Your YouTube videos are sick. Let's totally collab on something. And then, that was when I guess Post Malone dropped Rockstar like soon after, and he was like, dude, we have to cover this song. And I was like, all right, yeah, why not? I've never really done something like that, but holy shit, people loved that one.
Oh yeah.
And I never would have expected the response that it got and still gets. People still are always jamming it. So yeah, I mean, it was really just we had a mutual respect for each other, and that grew into a collaborative thing.
I mean, it's crazy to think that the internet connects so many people that way, but I have heard so many similar stories of how people that you would never think would have gotten together before, it's as simple as sending a DM or, adding someone on Facebook.
Oh yeah.
And then you get these awesome collaborations and it just works out so well. So that is absolutely great. So for yourself, how do you decide personally? Is it something you love something in that song, or is it something more in some cases where you see a song that's actually very popular and you're like, okay, I know that this can get my name out there a little bit more?
Yeah. It's a little bit of both. I think usually for my personal channel, I just cover whatever I want.
Okay.
Because I don't know, I like making covers and sort of, like I said, proving to myself that I can do this.
Right.
So if it's like, this is an old favorite of mine, I want to do it regardless of how many views I think this one's going to get. I just, if I'm feeling it, I'll do it. But at the same time, every now and then a song comes out and it's relevant and I like it, so off the cusp of that, I'll be like, all right, let's get this one out while it's still popping off.
Sure.
Generally, when I do like the pop covers, that's like Nick's idea.
Okay.
But for my channel, I just cover whatever I feel like doing. If I want to do a throwback, like a Linkin Park song, okay, cool. Or if I want to do something modern, like a Veil Maya song,
Sure.
I'll do that as well. It's just a healthy mix of like personal favorites and, what I'm spontaneously feeling like at the time. And if people like it, that's sick.
Right. So what's your normal turnaround time? Because, you talk about Nick Nocturnal and how he's able to do a cover. What's normally that amount of time for you?
When when it's Nick, he lights a fire under my ass and we get that shit done in like 2 or 3 days.
Oh, wow.
But, for my own stuff, it can take a little longer because nowadays I recreate all the instrumentals for my covers,
Right.
and that can take forever, especially not being like, a superb guitar player. I really have to break these songs down and learn them by ear usually
Oh,
and
wow.
play them in small pieces. And that can take, several days.
Yeah.
Or if I'm lucky enough, I can collab with, people like Mikerisms. If you know him,
Oh, sure.
he helps me out with some Dance Gavin Dance covers, or Sal play drums
Hmm.
and stuff like that. Or just, my bass player from Makari likes to help out with covers too. So
Okay.
whenever I can get help and I don't have to play all the instruments myself, it's usually faster. But yeah, dude, I mean, sometimes covers take weeks. Sometimes they take days, sometimes they take weeks, depending on the difficulty and just how much I got going on at the time.
Right.
It's also a sense of urgency thing. So if a song is really relevant, then it's like, all right, I got to get this done now versus a throwback when I can just do that at any time. So yeah, there's a certain level of quality that I just want to make sure they all have.
For sure. So now, when you talk about recreating, the background music for a track, are you doing that for legal reasons, or are you doing that just for your own personal reasons?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a little bit of both.
Okay.
I make some part of a living off of YouTube and Spotify, Apple Music revenue streaming
Right.
in
Mhm.
general. If I were to just sing over the actual track, that couldn't happen. I wouldn't be able to I wouldn't be able to distribute it whatsoever on DistroKid, which does, iTunes and Spotify and all that stuff.
Right.
But also it was just a move that I decided to make like professionally. I thought it was time for me to, you know, make covers of a higher quality where, if I'm just taking the track and dipping it out in the mid range so I can sing over the actual singer, that's cool. It can showcase my ability, but it doesn't sound that cool.
Gotcha.
I just really like everything to sound original and recreated, and what you're hearing is my voice, not the other singer's voice drowned out by my voice.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but then there's the legal thing too, of course. When I put 100% new original audio and get the mechanical license, then it can't be taken down, or I'm not going to get like a blocked worldwide or
Right.
whatever, because I already know, okay, this song's been licensed and there is a revenue split going on where it's paid out to the original artist. It's totally legal, and I just enjoy them more. I like the full production. Although I'm just, I'm a vocalist, I also am a huge audio nerd,
Ah.
and I do production for a job.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of many like small sources of revenue that gets me by is production and recording and mixing other artists. I actually went to trade school for that
Oh,
back
okay.
in the day, and then
Yeah,
just learned a shit ton on the internet over the years. So,
Huh.
being so well versed in production, it gives me the opportunity to do that stuff. So it's like, why not?
Right. No, that's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure people have seen when people get things taken off of YouTube. I think Jared Dines just went through like a ton of that, where
Oh
they were
God,
just like,
yeah.
nope, 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 nope. So it is interesting to know what people have to do these days to make sure that you're completely cleared. So not
Right.
only is it legal, but obviously, like you said, it's personal as well, where you get to learn a lot about
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
And yeah, it's
For
like putting
sure,
a puzzle
man.
together.
I mean, it's daunting and it can be a pain in the ass,
Right.
but it's so worth it for me to have. I think the first one I did was the Veil of Maya cover, where I was
Yeah.
like, I'm going to take on this challenge and reprogram everything. And when I did it, I was like, this is awesome. This is right. I'm just going to make all my covers
Yeah.
this way from now on. And yeah, so it's like a level up, and I refuse to go back, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough enough just to recreate or do justice to his vocals to begin with. So
Mhm.
you've got to work on all that and then add in the production elements as well.
Yeah, headache and a half, but totally worth it.
Well, hey, Andy, I think this is a really good place to end. I'm sure we could talk for hours, honestly, about everything that you're doing. And you're definitely going to have to come back on the show, and we're going to talk about Makari and other projects that you have as well. But let's go through right now the list of things that we kind of went over already. So this episode won't be out in time for May 17th, but that is when Nothing Stays by WVNDER is coming out officially on We Are Triumphant. So hopefully everyone can go listen to it. It is a really, really great album. So I'm hoping people will all check that out. Then, and I didn't even get to say this because we didn't go into it as much, but the debut full length from Makari, Hyperreal, also came out last year.
Yeah.
And it is honestly one of the best debut full lengths I've ever heard. So I'm hoping people
Thank you,
also
man.
listen to that. We've got the tour from Makari as well with Kurt Travis that we talked about. And I'll let you go into that a little bit more as well.
Yes, sir.
And then you're going to have a bunch of features coming up. I know you were teasing online about a new Dance Gavin Dance
yeah.
cover as well. So here, I just want to put that all out for everybody, but also please let everyone know what the best way to support you is.
Just come out to a show if you can. The Kurt Travis Andreas Makari tour starts for us on the 6th of July, and it goes until I believe the 27th. So if you could just check out my social media and see if any of the dates are in your area, I would love to see you at a show. Coming out to shows supports a lot.
Absolutely.
And then just if you could stream my music, stream WVNDER's music, Makari's music, all of that helps immensely. Just try to stay updated on what I'm doing. Always got stuff going on, and I'm trying as hard as I can to keep the train moving and put out as much content as I can.
For sure.
The covers, if you want to subscribe to my YouTube, just search my name, Andy Cizek, and that'll help you stay informed as well. And I really appreciate everyone that still supports the covers and still supports WVNDER and Makari and all my other stuff.
For sure. Do you have any other projects or anything that you want to go into a little bit that you have coming up?
So we covered the WVNDER album,
Yep.
Makari tour coming up. And then I've got solo music that I am really working hard to get done, hopefully by the end of this year. And something special for the longtime fans. And then also I've got some features coming up with Anoop Sastry. If you want to check out his stuff, pretty cool progressive metal. If you're interested in hearing me scream, there's a shitload of that. And just keep your eyes peeled because I got 2 really exciting projects that I can't wait to announce. Can't talk about it yet, but just know that it's coming. That's about it.
Awesome, man. Well, look, we are going to have links in the description of the episode to help with a lot of that, at least, so that people can keep up to date with you and get everything that you've got going on. And man, once again, this is great for me. I've been a fan for a long time. I know everyone at Scene Daddy is as well. So it's just very cool to learn everything that you've been going through and to talk about it. So man, once again, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. This was a blast, and hopefully we can do it again in the future.
You've been listening to Scene Daddy Interviews.
Thank you all for listening to Scene Daddy Interviews. Make sure you support the artists we featured by checking out the summary of the episode. Also, for all your scene news, reviews, and memes, make sure to follow Scene Daddy and Ian Hates on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and don't forget to subscribe and rate Scene Daddy Interviews on your favorite podcast listening app for more great artist interviews in the future. Stay seen.